Welcome back to another amazing episode of the FitBiz Journey podcast. Thank you for watching, guys. In this episode, we have the one and only Jordan Syatt. That's right, the Jordan Syatt that you may know from Gary Vaynerchuck, or today because he's completely branched out and he's known as the online coach guru. So I am super excited to sit down with him in New York City and go over how to become a personal trainer online, in person, or the combination of all. And you will find out which one is the best fit for you. So who better would that be than Jordan Syatt himself? So we sit down again in New York City and we just dive deep. And first of all, we find out where he came from, how he got the job with Gary Vaynerchuck, what he did to able to acquire it, how long did it take him to acquire it, and then how long did he work there, and then what happened from it. And then most importantly, he finally clears it out. What's more important, the numbers, the likes, the comments, and the engagement on your post, or the content? So after you watch this episode, you will have everything that you need to know on how to become just as influential and just as successful as Jordan Syatt. Every personal trainer out there and gym owner know your name. So there's very few people that I have talked to in the past weeks, months, who did not know who you are, which obviously shows that you're doing something right. You might know the person who basically went into McDonald's every single day, right? Yep. And then he lived off of Big Mac and showed it that colors in, colors out is what you really need to focus on. My number one question to start out with, and we ease into it, is that how did you end up, starting out with Gary Vaynerchuck?
So I got the job with Gary. It's a cool story, and it sort of goes by his whole thesis, or one of his theses, which is you never know what piece of content is going to change your life forever. So I started my website back in 2011. I was in college. I was in my dorm room. I didn't know an online business was possible. I was just writing articles about what I was learning and about my own powerlifting journey, because I was competing in powerlifting.
Very, very greatly, by the way.
Thank you. And in 2012, I wrote an article, and it's one of my least read, least viewed, least liked articles. Like, very few people have ever seen it, and very few people like it. It was an article about how to improve your posture when you're working from a desk. And my mom was one of the only people who read it. And so what happened was, one person who at the time was an accountant in Chicago happened to read it, and they left a comment. And I was not getting many views or people reading my website at the time, like maybe 40, 50 a day, like not many. So he happened to read it and leave a comment. He asked a question. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know his name. And I replied to his comment. And long story short, that person became a personal trainer. He ended up moving to New York City, and he ended up coaching Gary Vaynerchuck, and his name is Mike Vacanti, and he's now one of my best friends in the world. But what happened was, he followed my work after I replied to his comment, and then he liked my work, he liked my knowledge, and so when Gary asked him who would be his next coach, he said, I think I know a guy, and I was living in Israel at the time. So Mike reached out to me, and I decided that I would come coach Gary after I got the job, and I like this story because a lot of people think when they hear you don't know what piece of content's going to go viral or what piece of content's going to change your life, they think viral. Yep. They think like, oh, well, what piece of content's going to blow up? But the piece of content that essentially got me the job with Gary is one of my least viewed, least read, least liked articles, and it was just me taking the time to reply to the person who asked the question.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Most people are like, all right, this video is going to have 1 million views.
Exactly. It's all they think about.
Exactly. And even if you have 1 million views, it could die off just like that with that 1 million views, but you, let's say, had 1 view, but it was the right person.
That's exactly right. You never know who's reading it, and keep in mind, at that time, not only did I not know him, but he wasn't even in the fitness industry. He was an accountant in Chicago, and you just never know who is going to become what. You never know what's going to happen in other people's lives. It's like, which just goes to show, which another Gary thing is kindness. Like, always be kind, always, because you don't know who they're going to be eventually.
Exactly. So I basically just asked Jordan that, how he got started, but I wanted to find out, like, if somebody who doesn't have money or a website or anything like that, should they focus on creating the most beautiful website or anything like that, or they should just start with what they have? Let's see what he says.
I was doing I was on my powerlifting team in college, I would have one of my buddies take a video of me in my noisy college gym. They're still on YouTube, and some of them do really well. But I mean, I was super nervous. I would be like, "Hey, my name's Jordan Syatt from SyattFitness.com," like really nervous. So I was making content, but not like today, not like with Rico, not like highly well produced. It was very like bad image quality, bad sound quality, but it was how I got started.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, that's how everybody gets started. And I mean, think about it. If you would have met Rico back then and then tell him, hey, come on, let's do some videos, and then you do what you just said, all nervous and everything, he'll be like, well, I'm not sure if I should be here with you.
100%.
Yeah.
That's why, I mean, my first website was so bad in terms of the design. It was, I took a free template from WordPress, and my content was good. And there's still comments from the early days where people would say, your content is great, but why does your website look like shit? And it was just because I didn't have the money to pay for a web design. So I just did whatever I could afford, which was free, and like my phone videos and all, like I didn't have a microphone. It's like whatever you have to start, use it and go and progress over time.
Yeah, that's awesome. And there was no Fiverr back then where you can just hire someone.
That's exactly right.
Exactly. That's awesome. And I feel like everybody who made it now today, it started like that, but not everybody pushed through like you did.
That's exactly. And I'll tell you, I think I'm very lucky that I didn't know a business was possible. I didn't start writing articles online and making videos with the intent to get online coaching clients. And I think that's why I was able to keep going. Because I think now what happens is people are like, oh, I want to be rich, I want to make money, I want to work from the beach. So when they start making content, they immediately expect people to pay them very quickly. And when you don't let that happen, when people don't pay you immediately, you think you're failing, so you quit. The only reason I didn't quit is because my success was one more person liking it, someone DMing me saying, thank you, this really helped. There was no intent on the back end to make money because I was a 21-year-old college kid who did not know that a business was even possible. I didn't know PayPal existed. So that's the main reason I was able to keep going, is because there was no intent. There was no intent to make money. Yeah,
I love that, especially when you said the beach, because everybody thinks that way. I want to work from the beach.
It's like what all the mastermind gurus are, like, work from the beach and make six figures. I'm like, if you've ever tried to bring your laptop to the beach, you know it's impossible to work because the sun's glaring off of it anyway.
Which, this is not like a commercial or anything, but so many times when personal trainers ask me about online coaching, I usually just direct them to you. So,
thank you.
And I'm not asking for anything in return, any favors. It's literally just what you said. It's just like, I know there's somebody out there who is the guru, that I call you the guru basically, and I just want to help those people, and I'm like, you just go to him. That's it.
I appreciate
and
that.
And then that's
Thank
it.
you.
I mean, and it's not because you did anything to me, like, don't get it wrong or anything like that. I just know that you have great content and value to the people. That's literally it.
Thank you.
But as far as, so let's say now you had that new opportunity, so you just decided overnight, or you planned it out, or hopped on a plane, or how did that overcome?
With Gary?
Yeah, how did you just come over here?
Literally, so I came over here on February 24th, 2016.
Happy anniversary.
2 days ago,
right? 3? Yeah.
And I actually only remember that because I saw on my Facebook timeline that it reminded me. And I interviewed with Gary. I flew. I didn't tell anybody. Nobody knew. I had a roommate in Israel, and he thought that I was just going to go stay at a girl's house or something. And I flew to New York, and coached Gary. Flew back all within about 36 hours.
Wow.
And then I didn't hear anything.
It's a long flight too.
It's a long flight. It's like a 14-hour flight. And then I didn't hear anything for about a month and a half. So then finally I heard I got the job, and within a week I moved from Tel Aviv to New York. I found a place and started coaching Gary a couple weeks after that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was just a no-brainer.
So how did your life change? I know how, but how did your, I guess, perspective to business, because you were around business, a business person. Most people don't know that. They think he's just like a celebrity nowadays, as an entrepreneur, but he's a straight up businessman. So how did that change your perspective with the online coaching and everything?
A lot, actually, because by the time I got the job with Gary, it was 2016, and I had started my business in 2011. So there were a fair few years in there for me to be influenced by other people. And I had been largely influenced by people, unfortunately, who were very, very money driven. And so a lot of the influences that I had were just always about do whatever it takes to make more money, and it never felt right with me. and it didn't make me feel good. It actually gave me anxiety to only focus, because I got into coaching because I love coaching and I love helping people. So when I was around Gary, he's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
He's like, do the right thing, help people, give away all of your best stuff, just everything for free, kindness first. And to see that someone who had reached essentially the pinnacle of business was telling me that, relative to the people who are always telling me, squeeze out every dollar you can from every person, never give away stuff for free, it finally felt right. And it confirmed that the feeling in my gut was right all along too. So to sort of model myself off of that, which is just always do the right thing, and you know what the right thing is in your heart, and focus on helping people, and then the return will come. It was the best perspective to have.
So I wanted to find out that, you know, when Gary Vaynerchuck says that basically give everything away for free and not charge for anything and don't ask anything in return, well, that was the advice that Jordan Syatt got from him as well. And I just wanted to find out if he ran with it or he was very against it at first, because I have met so many entrepreneurs who are so against that advice. So let's see what he says.
So no, I went right with it, and I'm blessed that I did. But the main contention that people bring up with that is, if I give away everything for free, why would they hire me? And there's a number of points to consider with this, but number one is, everything that you know, you learned from someone else. Like, no one's reinvented the wheel here. You've all learned it from somebody else, and probably you learned it from someone who's generous enough to spend extra time with you and help you. So that's number one. Number two is, everything is available on the internet. Everything. I think one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was, people don't pay for coaching, they pay for coaches. And what that means is, they could get coached by anybody. But the reason they're paying one person for coaching, they're paying one coach, is because they trust that coach. They trust them as an individual. They like them. They want to support them. They want to thank them. That's why they'll stay loyal to them. So if you can think about how there's so much noise in the fitness industry and everyone's putting out information, why would someone choose you? Because they trust you. And how do you build trust? Not by trying to be like, well, I have all this amazing information, but you can't see it. You give them and you give them and you give them, and then they support you because of that. I think one of the best ways to build a great online coaching business is not by trying to entice people to sign up for something in which they could get more, but rather giving them everything you have for free, and then being like, you know what, I really appreciate how much this person has done for me. I want to support them. I think that's the best way to build a business.
That's amazing. I hope you guys took notes for that. So I finally asked him that, how long did it take him to get from start to finish? Did he even finish, or he is still on his entrepreneur journey? And what does success really means to Jordan Syatt? And most importantly, what is next?
I still don't feel like I've made it.
Exactly. So that's what I was hoping for you to say.
It's funny. I recently started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm a white belt. I'm awful. I'm truly spectacularly awful at Jiu-Jitsu. I get beat up every day. And I speak with the black belts, and I talk with them. I'm like, how long did it take you to feel like you're really good? And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm terrible. And the black belts, people have been doing this for 20 years. And that's how I feel about business. I feel like I learn something new every day. I see what someone else is doing, and I'm like, wow, that's amazing every single day. I make a ton of mistakes every single day. And I've definitely grown and gotten better, but I think the only reason I've achieved where I'm at now is because I'm never satisfied with where I'm at, and I never think like, okay, yeah, I've made it, ever. And I'm consistently humbled by how little I know. Consistently.
Yes. That's the mindset, winner's mindset.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I also saw that you also have a notebook or journal, but every day you just write down your daily goals, right?
Exactly. Every morning when I get back from jiu-jitsu, I write my goals out for the day, and it's basically a to-do list. It's like my goals. I call them my objective or my action-based goals. So I have objective-based goals and action-based goals. Every 6 months, I write new objectives that I want to achieve. It could be, I don't know, like I want this many followers on Instagram, whatever it is. You can make your objective whatever you want. But when it's the same thing, when someone says that they want to lose 25 pounds, Cool, you want to lose 25 pounds, but how are you going to do that?
Exactly.
And that's your action-based goal. So every day you have to write your action. So my action is, I'm going to post on Instagram 3 times. I'm going to do whatever it is. So every day I write what my action-based goals are, and I can check them off as I do them.
That's awesome. This is one of the most important questions that you guys might want to know the answer. And even if you don't want to know the answer, you need to know the answer. So make sure you pay attention to this, because I literally ask him what you need to do. Stay tuned right now.
I sort of want to clarify what brand is. Because I think if I ask most coaches what is a brand, they wouldn't know what the definition is. And it's equally important in the same way in fitness. If someone's like, well, I want to increase my metabolism. It's like, okay, well, do me a favor. Tell me what metabolism is first. Mm-hmm. And they have no idea what they're talking about.
Good point.
So what is a brand? For me, the definition of a brand is how you make people feel. Mm-hmm. That's it. It's not like your face, it's not like how you look, it's how you make people feel when they think about you, when they see your post come up. So with that knowledge, how do you build your brand? It all goes back to helping people for free for years and years and years. Yeah. I would say for the first 2.5 to 3 years, I'm gonna just say that one more time, 2.5 to 3 years of posting every single day, my audience barely grew. Mm-hmm. Like there was not much growth.
Yeah.
It went from 0 to several thousand, mm-hmm. which is not that much.
Nope. Yeah.
The reason I really emphasize that is because most coaches, they'll post every day for 2 weeks.
Yep.
And then they'll be like, what's going on? Like, this isn't working. It's the same thing as like if you have a client who ate perfectly for 2 weeks and then gave up.
Yeah.
They're like, well, why am I'm not losing any more weight? What's going on? I don't look the way I want to look yet. It's like, of course you don't. It's been 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Post every day. Or if not every day, 5 days a week, mm-hmm. for 3 years straight. Then you have earned the right to be upset if nothing's happened. Yeah. But the caveat is, if you've posted every day for 5 or 3 years straight, something's gonna happen.
Yes, exactly. Did you guys hear that? That I 100% agree with you, because everybody wants it overnight, of course. They posting and they ask, why is it not happening?
Yep.
And now I really wanted to find out what advice he may have for a personal trainer who just started out as a personal trainer, fresh out of the books. And second, an online coach, same, just fresh out. And then lastly, the third one is for an online coach who is also a personal trainer in person or online, brick and mortar, all the combination. So I just really wanted to find out what advice he may have to you. Should you start your own gym? Should you start online? Should you combine and create a hybrid? Let's see what he says. What would your number one recommendation to a new person who just got their certification and wants to conquer the world like you did?
Brand new, you go to someone else's gym and you work for them hard. Yeah. For a long time. I'd say at least a year. Mm-hmm. At least, that's bare minimum. For a number of reasons. What most people don't know as coaches is that when you open your own gym, mm-hmm. you're not really a coach anymore.
Exactly.
You're a business owner.
Yes.
You take care of the coaches. You take care of the equipment, the rental equipment, the plumbing. If the toilet's overflowing, you gotta fucking plunge it.
Yeah.
Like, you're not a coach anymore.
Yep.
You don't want the responsibilities of a brick and mortar gym. Yep. When you're learning how to be a coach. Mm-hmm. Your first responsibility is to be a great coach, bar none. Yep. So you start off coaching for someone else. You learn from them, you help them, you intern for them. I got my first internship when I was 14. Wow. I interned at gyms from when I was 14 all the way until I was 22.
Wow.
So coach with them, learn for years, go to another gym, coach, learn, go to another gym, learn, coach. Then if you decide you want to open a gym, fine. But I would say this, most people open a gym because they think either that's just what you have to do, mm-hmm. or because, and I've heard this way more times than I'd like, what they say is, I want to open a gym and eventually get to the point where I don't have to be there.
Yeah.
Then you don't want to open a gym.
Exactly, yeah.
That means if you want to open a business that you don't have to be a part of, you don't want to open a business.
Yes.
So if you are wanting to open up a gym because you love coaching people and you love helping bring up other coaches and you want to spread that, by all means go for it. But if you want to coach people just because you love coaching people, I would say rent out space from another coach, from another business, and just coach people in person without having all the responsibilities and insurance and everything that is required of a brick and mortar business.
Yes.
Then I would say, I think from an online perspective, you can start posting anytime you want. But I think a lot of coaches get nervous being like, I don't know if I should post because what do I know? It's like, then don't say that you know what you're talking about. Say, hey, I'm learning.
Yep.
I'm brand new to this.
Yep.
I think people respect above all honesty.
Yes.
And as long as you're not saying, well, I'm an expert and I got my ACE certification or I got my NASM certification, no one cares about your certification.
Nobody.
No one gives a shit.
Yeah.
If you are starting out, or even if you're 10 years into it, don't present yourself as though like you're an end-all be-all know-it-all. Like, just be like, hey, I'm going along this journey with you too. I'm learning every single day. Here's what I learned today, and show people. Here's a new exercise I learned. These are the muscle groups it works.
Yeah.
That's it. Give it a shot. And if you have any questions, let me know.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And then, well, now that we're getting to the end of it with online coaching, so you have Inner Circle, right? Is that something that you always wanted to do?
No, actually, I had no idea it was even a possibility. So when I started doing online coaching, I only did one-on-one. And I only did one-on-one from 2012, technically 2011, 2011 all the way until 2015. There was only one-on-one coaching online. Then, through studying business and understanding how things started to work, I was like, oh, there's an option to have more of a scalable membership that is lower cost and less from me individually with each person, but I have the greater opportunity to reach and impact more people. Because the great part about one-on-one is you can help people all over the world, no matter what, in a very intensive one-on-one coaching program. And it's as intense as if you want to make it. You could do Skype calls, you could send them videos, they could send you videos, you could do, if you just want to do it via email, you can. It's whatever you decide to make it. The issue is, there's a limit to how many people you can really give your best to, and it's very expensive, especially as you get more and more in demand. And I hated turning people away or people saying I can't afford you. I hated that. So I wanted to make an option that was available for more or less anybody, that I wouldn't be able to coach all of them one-on-one, but they would have access to all of my best workouts, all of my best nutrition, an incredibly supportive group community that's very positive and encouraging. So that's why I started that, because I wanted to give everybody the chance to have access to that information, even if we couldn't do it one-on-one.
So now, after hearing all this, I want to find out that how early did he start it? I mean, when did Jordan really, started working out and business? Because just like heard with even with Gary Vaynerchuck and so many athletes, they start at like age 5 trading cards or playing games or playing the football or whatever it is, right? So I just wanted to know if there is any relations to that with Jordan Syatt. Maybe he started so early already. So let's see what's his secret when he started and who was there for him to help him through this process.
So I started working out when I was about 12.
Okay.
But I was super lucky. Basically, number one, my mom she was like a no excuses type of woman. She's like, she wouldn't accept me just lying around the house doing nothing. So I started working out when I was 12, and I was wrestling since I was 8 years old. When I got to high school at 14, I made varsity as a freshman, and I had to cut from 112 pounds to 103 pounds. So from a technical perspective, I was a good wrestler. Endurance-wise, I was a good wrestler. But at 13, 14 years old, going up against juniors and seniors, 16, 17, 18 years old, I didn't have the strength. So I wanted to learn how to lose weight and get stronger. So I applied to a gym nearby to intern. I was like, I just want to learn from you. How do I get stronger? How do I do this stuff? The first gym that I applied to, they said no. Like, our clients don't want a high school kid walking around. So then I remember I was devastated, and I went back home, and my mom was like, did you get it? I was like, no. And I was just like, I was done. And she was like, well, now what? I was like, what do you mean, now what? And she was like, aren't you going to apply to another place? And I was like, I hadn't thought of that. So then I called another gym, and I was like, can I come in? And they were like, yeah. And it was a blessing, because they were very science-based, and they were very encouraging, and they took me under their wing and taught me the right way to lift and strength train and eat. And so from 14 years old, I was inundated with science-based strength training and nutrition. I didn't spend too much time in the magazines or the forums looking at nonsense. I was very, very lucky. And from 14 years old, all the way through high school, I got coaching experience, more coaching experience than most coaches have in the years after they have college.
Yeah.
So I coached literally 3 to 5 days a week from 14 years old.
That's great.
Yeah, and my first client was a 68-year-old guy named Fred. His shoulders were really, he had rotator cuff issues. And I'll never forget this. His main goal was to be able to pick his grandson up without hurting his shoulders.
That's a great goal.
And I was 14, and I was a wrestler, and I wanted to lose weight, and I wanted to look good naked and perform really well, and that was it. And at 14, you have very little perspective.
Yeah.
So I just thought people worked out to look good.
Mm-hmm.
So when all of a sudden I get my first client, a 68-year-old guy who tells me the only thing he wants to do is be able to pick his grandson up, immediately I'm like, I have no idea what to do. And the coaches there, Stacy and Kevin, who were the two coaches who took me under their wing, they walked me through the process. They're like, okay, this guy doesn't care about his belly fat. This guy doesn't care about having abs. How do we program for him now? And I started thinking critically at a very young age, and it's because of that. And I think that was one of the best lessons I ever could have had.
Very early on. It sounds like, first of all, it sounds like your mom is very well put together.
Yeah.
And second, you got your first no, and then she helped you through it,
Yep.
which was I think a very good learning lesson up front. And then lastly, you also learned how to get somebody else's why, even though he gave it to you technically. I'm not sure how it went down,
Yeah.
but he basically gave you his deep why of why he's doing it. And I think that's a huge lesson, because there's so many coaches that still don't know today what a why is for someone, why they're actually training. They just think to, look good naked, like you said it.
That's exactly
Well,
right.
I love it. That's awesome.
It's a perfect breakdown.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
So it's time for the number one advice that he has for anyone in the fitness industry. Let's hear it.
There's a lot that I would like to
that's
hear.
fine.
I would say for me what's been most beneficial, rather than trying to learn the best way to post on social media or the best copywriting skills or the best video, if you focus on being a better coach, business will come. And this is why I'm not a big fan of the masterminds, the gurus, and the 6 figures real quick, because what they do is they shift your focus from helping people to making money.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with making money at all. Like I'm a big supporter of building your business, and because the more money you have, the more you can help other people.
Exactly.
I'm a big supporter of that. But I know coaches, and I know most people become a coach because they want to help people. And when your focus shifts from helping people to making money, all of a sudden you get really anxious and you don't like what you do anymore because you're not focused on what you love. When you focus on helping people and you focus on being a great coach and you focus on doing the right thing, the business will come.
Yeah.
But when you focus on trying to increase your business rather than doing what you love, that's when you don't even like it anymore.
Exactly. 100% agree. I went through that, so I understand exactly how it works and everything.
From personal experience.
Yep.
Like any time I focused on money, I hated it.
Yep.
And any time I focused on helping people, I loved it and I increased my business.
Yeah, that's awesome. What is next for you right now?
I have no idea.
Okay. Yeah.
I right now in this moment, I'm on day 4 of my carnivore experiment, which is terrible.
Okay.
I hate it.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, why would you do something that you hate, like this carnivore diet? It goes completely and utterly against everything I stand for in regard to nutrition and health.
Yep.
It's not sustainable long term for the vast majority of people. I would consider it a relatively unhealthy diet for the long term. The reason I like to do these things is because it's one thing for a coach to say, that diet is stupid.
Yeah.
It's another thing for a coach to actually do it, document the process, and show you why it's a stupid diet.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, one of the best things that I think is that you can learn from actually doing something is you get both sides of the coin. There are things I've learned already from doing it that I think have practical value to our clients.
Yeah.
I think the overall net is negative and not worth it. But you always learn more from doing than you do just from looking or seeing or talking.
Exactly.
Right? And I think my clients and people will trust me more
Yeah.
if I'm actually willing to try it than if I'm just saying, no, screw that.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're gonna have the gall to tear something down, you should try it first.
Yeah, it's funny you said that, because so many people would be like, you could just say, I don't like it, or it doesn't work. Lots of coaches just say that without actually experiencing it.
Yep.
But in your case, you could just say both ways. Well, you be the judge of it. Here's my documentation of the process.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
I think it's really important. Like, I'm gonna be very honest with my breakdown of it. there are things that I do actually like about it and I think have positive aspects, which I think a lot of people will be upset about because I'm not just completely tearing it down. But when I make content, I'm not doing it to cherry pick. I'm not doing it to support my preconceived notion. The whole reason I do an experiment is so that I can learn.
Yes.
And as soon as you get to a point in which you don't think you need to learn, you've lost.
Exactly. I love it. Where can people find you right now?
My own podcast, the Jordan Syatt Mini Podcast, YouTube, Jordan Syatt, Instagram, Syatt Fitness. Just search Jordan Syatt, S-Y-A-T-T, and I'll come up.
It will come up. All right. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
It was amazing. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate you watching all these episodes, sharing it, commenting, and giving us reviews. If you haven't done any of those, please do. It really helps us, and it also really helps us to actually revamp our website, get the right guests, and invite more people to our show. And I just want to thank you, all of you, because our viewership, downloads, and listeners and subscribers is growing very, very quickly. So we really appreciate you. And don't forget that starting in a few weeks, we revamped our whole website, which is fitbizpodcast.com, where you can email us, message us. On Instagram, it's FitBizPodcast. My personal one is Daniel Z. Neary. You can message me, email me, suggest guests. For example, on one of the previous episodes, Mark Magna, he was an ex-NFL player and he's the co-owner of Anatomy Gym in Miami and has many locations. But the reason I'm bringing him up because he was suggested by one of our amazing listeners, and I'm so thankful for her because that was one of my ultimate favorite episodes of all time. So guys, keep submitting in guests because we would love to interview them. And this year we're gonna actually have a few live interviews as well, meaning in front of a live audience where you can actually come out, meet the guests, talk to them, take pictures, and all that fun stuff, and ask Q&A at the end of the episode. So again, guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. I really appreciate you, and see you next week.